Hello and welcome to Gimmerish Commentaries. I'm James. I am the host of Gimmerish.com. It's my personal website, and I'm a filmmaker. And I'm going to start doing a series of commentary tracks for the various short films and experimental things I've done over the years. So I know it's a total cliche when directors on their commentaries on DVDs are like, hey, make sure you listen to the movie with the normal soundtrack first and don't watch with the commentary track first off. But I highly doubt that anyone in history has had a DVD player that accidentally defaulted to the commentary track and then watched the movie for the first time entirely with the commentary track switched on without freaking out and trying to change it. But since this is going to be hosted on my YouTube account and the actual movie is hosted on my Vimeo account, there is a chance that since I do have some YouTube subscribers, that some people might come across this video before they've actually seen this movie, because not many people have seen my movies. So this is just a warning to say, go to gimmerish.com, go to the short films section and watch the movie Shadow of the Seraph by itself first, and then come back and listen to the commentary. Obviously, my friend Campbell who's involved in a lot of the films, has been pushing me to do a commentary tracks for my short films all the time. He's a big fan of extra features and DVDs, but I mean, no one watches my movies on DVDs anyway. It just didn't seem feasible, and now I've started my own radio station. I do have a nicer mic, although I'm not actually recording in my sort of designated recording area at the moment. I'm recording right next to my server and my really noisy computer, which you probably hear the fans going in the background, so it's not ideal at the moment. Anyway, so I've got this unlimited YouTube length thing. I'm going to test it out by making some basically really long podcasts, but they're sort of video podcasts because we're going to have the video of the short films running on loop in the background. This one I'm doing all by myself, just because I don't think anyone else I know wants to sit through it just by themselves with me. But most of the other commentaries I'm going to do with someone else by my side, either a friend or someone who was involved in the movie, which is usually one and the same person. We have actually done a commentary track for this film before. I recorded with Imogen, who stars in this film, Imogen Inglis. I recorded that, but it's one of just a few pieces of data I've lost over the years, and it's really kind of frustrating. When we recorded, I recorded on a memory card, and the memory card got corrupt before I could import it, and we've lost that commentary track, which is quite interesting because we recorded quite soon after recording it, and I think we recorded just after she'd first seen it, so she was asking a few questions. I was asking her a few questions of what she actually thought of it, and but that's lost forever now. I'm sure she doesn't want to record a commentary track for this again after that. This is not my first commentary I've done for my videos, but this is sort of the first official one I'm doing for my sort of main short films. Yeah, so I'm just going to blab on a bit about the setup to this film during the first run. I'm not sure if I'll be able to keep talking for the hour, whatever it takes to get through the whole production. But basically, this is the movie, The Shadow of the Seraph. I probably should have said that at the start, shouldn't I? Yeah, you agree with me? This is The Shadow of the Seraph, and this is the director's commentary by James Pontifex, the director. So yeah, 4 minutes in, I've finally just introduced myself properly and the movie that we're watching. And the commentary tracks, I'm probably going to be drinking a glass of wine when we talk about as well, so you have to excuse me while I take a sip every now and then. So basically the genesis of this particular film, The Shadow of the Seraph, is it was done for a PAC screen workshop, which is run by Annie Murder Monks in Perth, Western Australia. It's the sort of like these they go on to just 2 months. At the moment they're like 6-week courses, and you have 5 sort of like talks once a week, and then after talks you meet up with the other people in the group, and you do stuff, and in the last week you show the scene or the short film that you've just whipped up over that 6 weeks to an audience, and he invites critics in to critique it and give people feedback on their acting and directing and blah blah blah. That's not really explained very well. Basically it's an actor and actors, directors and writers, they get together. There's not often many people who do it just for writing, because a lot of the writers come and it gives them a chance to, test out directing themselves with the stuff they've written, and have actors. So she gets actors together and she groups them so that you can't just fuss over who you're going to have in your film. You just have to put something together with the group. So you'll have, like, say, 1 writer director and 2 or 3 actors. In this case I had 3 in this. 3 people I had who are the main stars in the show. Nelson, Clement, Imogen Inglis and Sarah Lawrence. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. But they play the 3 main characters in the film. That is Nelson talking to Luciano Vecchio just there, but we'll talk more about that stuff later. So yeah, you get together as a group, a couple of actors, a couple of directors. You think up there's usually a theme for the course. So obviously this theme for this course was film noir, so we wanted to make a film noir. You're the writer director, think out some ideas, and the writer director goes away, writes a script, then you come back, then you have, in theory you have a couple of weeks to rehearse it, and then have to organize times to shoot it, to shoot the course. It's sort of like a club, and then after the night you go out to the pub and just sort of catch up socially, and it's kind of like you pay to do the course, but it's kind of like being in a club, and you get to meet new people, and sort of network, and sometimes meeting someone through the course leads you to doing other work outside of the course and around Perth. And it is cool at the end when you have she invites a couple of people in the industry, local industry in Perth, to come in and critique your work, and they basically rip you to shreds. But that's my favorite part about it, is sort of getting some really critical feedback. I mean, I'm my own biggest critic, so nothing really bothers me too much. Some of the other people take the feedback really harshly, but it doesn't bother me. I like being ripped to shreds because I like to hear what people said and how they interpret the film, because most of the time I sit in a room and I don't get to sit in this little bubble of my own head. I don't know how people are going to perceive the things that I think up. I especially find it hard because, like, the actors sometimes don't even know what they're doing, and it's not until the actual screening where I've edited all the stuff we've filmed together that they're like, hey, I get what you're trying to do. I shouldn't have whinged all those times about what was going on. Sorry, I'm just trying to Google the website for Annie's courses just in case there's any West Australian. Yeah, screenworkshop.com.au if you want to get involved in a PAC class, Perth Actors Collective. They do, you have to do a beginner's course on a Tuesday night just to start off with, and then they have a rotating next level course, which is just a standard course and has a different theme every 2 months or whatever. And it just rotates throughout the year. I only can do it in terms of time/money. I can usually do it twice a year, but even now I don't really need to. I really should be concentrating on things, but I just do it just for fun, just for their social activity. Now, so this particular course is for this particular theme of this particular PAC workshop unit. It was for film noir. I signed up because I'm like, I really love modern noir. I think they call it neo-noir, like two of my favorite films are Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Man Who Wasn't There. Kiss Bang done by Shane Black, and The Man Who Wasn't There by the Coen Brothers. And I mean, a lot of the Coen Brothers work is really film noir inspired, and that's what inspired me. Although when we got there, a lot of the actors wanted to, of course, we watched a lot of the original film noirs from the 1940s or whatever, and we watched excerpts from that, and people went home and watched them in their own time, and people really just wanted to dress up, and the main appeal for the actors was dressing up and into 1940s attire and getting into really, they wanted to do a genre piece. Because I don't, old movies for me have really dated, like anything that doesn't have, any movie that can't be sort of up converted to surround sounded or whatever, I really have, sound is so important to me that all movies that really just have the voice track and some really loud music over top, I really struggle to watch. I just don't feel it has a good atmosphere, and that's what film noir is, about, as it was for film, for the first 50 years or whatever. And we watched them, and it's film noir even back then was a real genre thing. It's like they have a detective and they have a femme fatale and stuff, and every movie's kind of same with just a slight different twist. Just as, most genre pieces these days, like horror and that's all the same, but, a slight twist on the theme, and people are like, wow, he tweaked it a little bit, that's amazing. As you can see, I'm not a fan of most strong genres that really demand that kind of stuff. I'm not making much sense, am I? But so, my dreams of doing something kind of modern, neo-noir was sort of dashed, but I was interested in trying to, like The Man Who Wasn't There, where the Coen Brothers sort of did a sort of really sort of traditional, maybe 1940s plot, but then they put their own eccentricities in eccentricities. It doesn't translate from Gibberish to English. Eccentricities, I don't even know what I'm saying, but their own little quirks into the movie, like the wife who believes that aliens had abducted what's his name, the guy who got murdered, James Gandolfini, whoever his character was, and that kind of stuff. They had their quirks. I thought, my idea for this film was to do something like that. It's a really traditional, it's got really cheesy film noirish dialogue and a really sort of cheesy plot, mixed with my own little quirks with the sort of superhero kind of storyline ideal. And I wrote this script together. It was really, really long, and I figured that the actors would just reject it, but they loved the really cheesy dialogue, and they're like, yes, we want to do it. And I was just like, whoa, because normally in packed workshops it's hard to get a commitment out of the actors. They can't give more than one night out of the whole 6 weeks to do it. But these guys, no, it's a long shoot, but we'll come over during the shoot week. We'll come over after work each evening, and we'll just shoot until we're tired, and we'll go home. And so it was shot over 5 nights, like a Monday to Friday, pretty much. I think we possibly swapped one for like the Sunday later, and it was probably, the 5 nights were probably spread over like 7 days, but it was pretty casual going. But it was hard to do because like I pretty much work with no crew at all, really. This particular scene here that we're watching now, where they're playing pool, you'll notice that it has really, really bad sound, because this is the only scene where I actually went out on the internet and tried to find someone who claimed to be a sound recordist and do the sound recording for me, and for some reason he only actually turned up to this one night where we shot this scene, and it is the worst sound out of the whole movie. I won't mention his name, I don't want to ruin his reputation, but I just have to take a sip because I'm running out of moisture in my mouth. So yeah, I mean, it was a hard room to film in. It was quite, because it's a pool room, there's not much there to absorb the sounds. It was quite echoey, and it's a big old house. We filmed it at my friend Fred's parents' house. It was an old living room, and they didn't use it as a living room. They my Fred had put a little pool table in, and we shot it in there. Anyway, basically, let's get back on track. So yeah, film noir. So the actors were pretty excited, so excited to do it. Before we even got into the ordeal of trying to schedule the filming together, although they're pretty easy about it, they just loved going out, and we spent a long time trying to find costumes for the characters. We went to Memory Lane. We got a discount there. Memory Lane's a costume shop in Perth, and they specialise in period clothing, and they do all sorts of periods for whatever you want to do. And so for the actors, they really I sort of left them to go out and find their own stuff. Really, I only had very basic instructions, like Imogen being the Iris or whatever. I can't even remember this character. I haven't watched this movie in ages. I should have watched the movie by itself before recording this commentary. Wouldn't that be the good idea? But Imogen, who's singing right now, she was going to be black because she's the bad guy, and the Sarah, who plays the blonde, was going to be wearing white because she's the good guy. And Nelson, who's playing the private detective, had to wear, a coat and a hat. And he really, got into it, and he went crazy with the makeup as well. Like, that was my tie he's wearing just there, and to this day it's still permanently stained with all the makeup he was using. Seemed to brush off he was making up his whole neck and everything to look, sort of this. My cinematography doesn't do it justice, but he looked sort of impeccably 1940s film star on set. So yeah, that was we spent a lot of time, whenever I suggested we should rehearse, it was hard to get them to rehearse, but really easy to get them out to go looking for outfits, is what I'm trying to say here. Going crazy. What should I talk about next? This movie I shot back in 2007. I'm recording this in 2011, early 2011, and so it's 4 years ago. It's probably under 4 years ago now, and 2007 was like the worst year of my life. Nothing really that bad happened. I think it's just because nothing happened really. And it just seemed to get me really depressed. And this film just... it was fun to shoot it, really awesome we shot it, but the editing process just broke me, pretty much. Just everything went completely and totally wrong. I was... The reason why I thought I was down to do this film is because I had done the film previous to this on my filmography on jimmerish.com is called The Dark Chill, and we did that. That's a film noir. It's a black and white. I filmed that with my young cousins who they're old now, but they were quite young then. We did it. I filmed it on like Christmas Day, and I didn't really do anything with the footage, but one day I sat down and edited it like a month later and turned it into a little short film with the Moonlight Sonata or whatever, using that as the main theme tune, and just put something together and put that on. People seem to like that, and that was the sort of thinking, well, I could do that again, but at a different scale, so I'll do the film noir course. Basically, I had in late 2006, I had taken some of the money that my parents had given me to pay off my HEX debt to and I wanted to make my own movies and make them look really totally awesome, so I could concentrate on doing a good story, because I really want to be a writer. I mean, I'd like to direct my own films one day, but I think the only way I can distinguish myself is from my sort of writing and my idea of storytelling. I think I'm more of a George Lucas type, who's not the best director going around, but I think George Lucas's storytelling is some of the best in the world, bar none. Like, no matter what criticisms you have for him, creating the whole Star Wars universe is just an amazing thing, and obviously a lot of other people have contributed to their stuff and that, but he's the one who started it all, and he is a legend for that reason, even though he seems to become hated by all the hipsters who find it's so hip to hate Star Wars these days. Yeah, I wanted to concentrate on writing. So I had two choices. I had this money that my parents said had been saving up my whole life, and they give it to me to go to university. But I decided not to go to university, go to film school instead. And I still had some film schools cheaper than, third cheaper than a university degree. So I still had a reasonable amount of money left over to, and I was like, what was I going to do with this money? My first idea was to buy a Steadicam, because, my favorite movies are where they try and do the filming really simply, where it's all done in one shot, and like if it's like whether it's Gosford Park or like Robert Altman or P.T. Anderson, where they sort of just have the camera in there and it floats around. It's kind of like a ghost in the scene, and you just get into the atmosphere. Like, the thing that attracts to me about filmmaking is over other art forms is that you can create a world. Like, people go into cinema and they get lost in the world that you create, and even it doesn't have to have a good plot. If you create a good world, people find it absorbing, and they will they'll sit there and just get lost in that world, and hopefully you have good characters that are interesting. And a lot of people hate movies. Like, some of my favorite movies are like Sofia Coppola's movies, where don't really have a definitive ending or beginning. You're just in that world, and they have really interesting characters, and you sort of get lost, taken into this world, and for a moment you're living like someone else's life, and then you come out of the cinema, out of the dark, and you're back in your life. But just for that 2 hours that you're in a cinema, it's like you're living in a different world. And that's what the movies I like best, are the ones that can translate that. So I wanted to find a tool that I could use in my filmmaking that would help me do that. And my first idea was this: get a Steadicam, and so I can just follow people around with a nice smooth camera, and just use the regular digital camera and do that. And I applied to get funding for one project which I had designed. It was a story that I liked, and maybe I'll still one day make that movie, or I'm probably going to incorporate into a feature film later on. But the actual design, the directing premise around it was all based around having a Steadicam and taking you in the world and following these people around on this sort of amazing journey, using the very limited resources. So the most expensive tool I had was the Steadicam. Everything else would be cheap, and then using those limited resources sort of follow people around. And it feels like this sort of ghost would follow you around. But I didn't get the funding for that, and I sort of started to rethink, and I had started to look into depth of field adapters, which were back when I recorded this in 2007. It's only 4 years ago, but no, sorry. I got the depth of field at the end of 2006, and the first film I did that is The Big Woo, which you can see on the filmography. You can watch that on the filmography. and that was another pack project. And I'll do a commentary track for that separately. But I wanted to, my next thing was, I was thinking how to spend this money was get a depth of field adapter, and then because I'd been studying photography at uni, and then once I left uni, because it was just a rubbish course I was doing, the one thing I came out of was going, well, the photography course was good, but it was a film course, and I found it really frustrating. I didn't feel I was learning anything, because it was, you just couldn't practice things the way I like to practice, like taking lots of, I like to do things by trial and error and stuff like that to learn. That's how I learn, and just picking up things and using it and learning it. But you just can't do that in the film world. You only have 30 shots per reel, and you have to go develop it yourself, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, a lot of the basics of photography in that unit, but I just, in theory, but it just didn't really struck me until, for my 21st birthday, my parents got me a DSLR camera. It was a Canon 350D, and then once I had that, and I started looking, well, you can buy all different lenses, and I bought a 50mm f1.4 lens, and I was really sort of blown away by the being able to use selective focus. You have a shallow depth of field and using it, and how to use a still story. So I'm like, well, how do I do this in the video world on a really low budget? And the hip new thing back in 2006, before DSLRs did video, was depth of field adapters. And so I went and got an Red Rock M2 depth of field 35mm adapter, and I bought the latest HDV consumer camcorder from Sony that was on the market at the time, which I think was the HDR HC3. And then I just got lost in the world, because on that, with the depth of field adapter, you could get adapters for the adapter itself for just all sorts of lenses. And I found the world of the Canon FD manual focus lenses they brought out before the EF lenses, automatic focusing lenses. And although you could get these really cheap, and first, to start off with, like on the Big Woo, I got just really cheap 50mm f1.4. I had a 35mm f2 or something like that, and I shot the Big Woo with those two lenses. By the time I got to the Shadow of the Seraph, I think I had just gone, wow, I was just falling in love with these old manual lenses, and I started buying the L series FD lenses. Like, I bought a 50mm f1.2, and 85mm f1.2, a 24mm f1.4, and although it wasn't an L lens, I had a 135mm f2, which is in the EF series. That sort of stated lens is an L lens, I think. So I was just like, wow, I had all these lenses and I wanted to tell a story of that. And I'm not sure if I had them for the dark chill. I lost my memory there. I don't know. I think I still was just using their really cheap lenses back for the dark chill. But by the time this one came around, I wanted to do something. I also had a fisheye. I got a fisheye lens as well, but I didn't actually use that. Where is this going? Anyway, so I actually ended up spending my money on that depth of field adapter, really cheap HDV camera. The problem with depth of field adapters is it takes 2 stops of light out, so it's really hard. This is the big irony, is it really hard to, when I bought this, I knew this, I had written my research, I knew it, but I knew you would lose a lot of light, but I figured I'm just going to film everything I do during the day and do day for night, whatever. But then ironically, the next project I took on was a film noir, which was filmed all at night. And so I really had to use really big, fast lenses like f1.2 and 1.4 to capture this, because you lose so much light, and the Sony camera just got so noisy while you're filming in low light. It's really hard to capture it, and I figured I would use some harsh primary lights to make strong shadows or whatever, and in the end it probably the film didn't really look up that. It was actually originally filmed in color, and I'd emphasized the color of the iris, the flower that the baddie puts on the victims, and really drew that. So the purple was really strong, but other colors were all muted, but it was all in color. But I ended up not really like the version you're seeing here is in black and white, because eventually over the years, when I went to re-upload it to my website, I was just like, I just hate the colors that look so phased, especially after I've been using a DSLR for my recent films, or filming during the day of my M2 adapter. It just really sucked balls. So I converted to black and white, and that's why the Thomas Productions logo here is, and we're going into our second one. So I might talk more about what specifically is on the screen now for this second run. I've probably talked enough. These illustrations here are done by Barney Stewart, my friend and my best friend's wife. Obviously we didn't have the budget to film in real locations, so I thought it would be a funny idea if she did these, just a few drawings that we could sort of do a Ken Burns effect in to set the scene, so to speak, since it is kind of like a I don't know what they call them, what do they call all that? I'm losing my memory. Like hard, back in the day they had these, lots of comics about private detectives and stuff like that. And is it hard boiled they call it? I don't know. Stuff. It's all kind of like really based on that. It wouldn't kind of fit the style where it's like a comic book setting, doing a film noir, maybe like a Frank Miller film or something, to set up a scene and go in. That there, the person dying, is my friend Matt Robertson. He is now a politician who ran for the Greens in the Australian federal election in Sydney, Wentworth, I think the seat was, against Malcolm Turnbull. And this is his parents' living room where we film this scene. They have this amazing house in Mount Lawley that I don't know for sure, but his mother just loved. This room isn't actually an extension, but they had meticulously done it to match the rest of the style of the house, unlike many extensions in Perth. But this one done to suit it, and it made this really sort of big living room with really old antique furniture. They put so much care into every detail, so it sort of felt perfect for doing a period filming. And he really wanted to be in one of my movies, and I was like, yeah, you sure you can be in it if I can film in this room to set up this scene that we're doing now. The two small-time crims here, Luciano Vecchio, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I have never really... This is the only time I've worked him, but in Perth, he's a really cool actor around Perth to have on. Hopefully one day I get to work with him again. And this is Ben Mattei. I don't know how to pronounce his name there, Mattei. You might recognize him from The Big Woo if you watch that on my site. These guys had their own separate projects. They were in pack as well, but they were doing in a different group. But I said, hey, you guys want to come along and have this cameo? And they're like, sure, and they're really cool about. Ben didn't have a car, so I did have to drive to like Whoop Whoop to pick him up, but that was cool with me. And it was fun, sort of, because they didn't have time to come by and come out to get costumes because they're busy on working on their own group's project. I had to go out and find their costumes, and I had to bring a whole bunch of stuff to hopefully find something that will fit them in and try and make them sort of like old-timey. Here you can see my brilliant cinematography skills with a silhouetted hero. Now you can see there Clement, Inglis, Lawrence credited as producers there, because they were my three actors in the group. But they sort of did so much that I was like, they're pretty much producers in this project and put everything in it. The music for this film is done by a guy called Arapan, who's a friend of Nelson's. Arapan, again, don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, hopefully, sorry. I basically turned up at his house and just recorded him playing the piano he had lots of different ideas for how to do the music, and recorded him doing the piano just with my boom mic. So it's accidentally the music sounds like almost practical, like it's in the scene, just because I was recording with the boom mic, which is the same mic you're recording the actors with. I'm no music recordist. Here, of course, is Imogen playing one of her two characters, which is wearing a wig, and she's did very well to create this really bit of a cliched receptionist or secretary person. I don't know if anyone's actually been confused about that she plays two parts in the movie, but yes, she plays a receptionist here. Now, this scene here in the thing there with the light coming through the Venetians, I mean, it looks kind of rubbish on the HDV camera, but the stills I took from that scene, people rave about it. It just looks really cool because I was, using a proper, an 8 megapixel camera, Canon 350D to take the pictures. This is here as the outside of Imogen's rental house that she was living in at the moment. There you can see the sign or logo, or what do they call them? Signature, stamp. People put stamps. Seal. The seal of the superhero. There you can see a hint of it just there. Here we are back at Matt's house. I can't actually hear what music is playing here, but I have a feeling this is music I made on GarageBand for this particular bit where he's walking into the room. I don't know if Arapin did the music just here. It's Matt down the floor. Now, in the original way this film was screened, it was desaturated, but the flower still had colour, so the flower sitting on Matt's body is would be really rich purple, and everything else looks desaturated. Ben was very patient here because he didn't have much to say. He just to sit there tied up to Luciano. People love this shot here. Just to put in the glove. It's a pretty cool shot. I have to try doing that again one day. People did not like the shot I did earlier, just a bit earlier, where I put the camera on its side so it's looking out from the body. As you can see, the HDV camera is really struggling here to capture much stuff. I mean, it kind of looks like using a really old film grain from like a really old film. That's what I was hoping for, like in my tests. I just hope it will come across as that, but I don't think it does. Probably doesn't work at all. People didn't really like the accents in this, but I mean that was the characters used. But I mean that's what the actors really got into, was like they wanted to do these phony accents and really be these sort of stereotypical cliche characters, and I think it's good practice for them. And some people, when they sit down, especially if you watch this on the internet, there's a big difference. I found people who watch this on the internet just don't. No one wants to sit down and watch a half-hour short feature on the internet on YouTube or whatever. I mean, we couldn't upload this to YouTube because YouTube back then had only 10-minute limit. So I actually distributed this as a fairly high-quality podcast, and you subscribe to it and download it to your iTunes so you could watch it on your computer. I don't know how many people actually watched it. I tried to encourage people to watch it full screen, sit back and relax, but people just don't do that on the internet. The couple of times I screened it to an audience where they had to sit down and watch it, those people actually enjoyed it and they got the storyline and understood what was going on. And if you asked the people who watched it on the net, they just like, I didn't get it. So that's the difference it makes. When I finished it, quite enjoyed sitting down and watching it, but that's probably because I made it. I was like, wow, I made this movie. This is Jake Lyle. He just came along. He was part of Impact as well, but in a different group, and he just did the cameo as well. We got him dressed up being the cliche photographer. I think he's actually really good in this role. I was really impressed, and I actually cast him in a later film, Noah's Ark, as the lead character because of it. you can see how the flash, he was using real flash there and really messed up the HDV, but probably to good effect. Here you go, see my brilliant lighting skills with the light coming through the Venetians. And you can see on the lamp there's actually you can see the coloured gel hanging out from it where I tinted it for the lighter one for the coloured version. I didn't really need it for the black and white version, but I didn't know that at the time because I wanted to shoot in colour. It was everyone else was doing black and white. I didn't want to do black and white, but in the end, of course, since you're working with light so much in this, I'm all about filming in natural light. That's my passion, is using technology to film in the most natural light possible. If you see my most recent films, where I've just experimented using DSLR, you can really film in really low light situations, and I don't even color correct that stuff. It just looks really good just using real light. Sometimes you want to put a flecky on the face to see, make the eye sockets not so dark, but the black and white helps forgive the bad quality of the HDV camera sensor. Finding these matches like this was really hard, and I had the idea of these. I'd seen these matches around, hotels, but of course they don't give them out anymore because smoking's bad. And I was just like, where would you get those little packet matches from? I wanted a clue for him to lead him to the bar. Where do you get them these days? And I spent, we only had like a week of pre-production. Spent the whole week just sort of looking on the internet, blah blah blah. I didn't find. It turned out my grandfather had, just coincidentally he came over and I was googling it, and he asked what I was doing. And I said, I'm just looking for his matches. Like, I've kept every single packet of those disposable match packs, or giveaway match packs that I've stayed at every hotel. Like, he used to do a lot of traveling for his work, and he kept it, and he had heaps of these old match packs, and he hasn't smoked since he was a lot younger, so he never actually used them. And so he gave me a bunch of them, and I, using my mad Photoshop skills, made some bangers bar matches. This here we're filming is actually my living area, and much to the annoyance of my housemates, I covered the walls in black sheeting. I didn't have enough money to cover everything, so you can see how there's a limit to the black, and you can start to see the rest of the house above the line of the lights there. To try and turn the bar and put fairy lights around to give it an atmosphere, and hopefully that will look cool with the new lenses in the background, sort of going with those lights going out of focus. But again, they're not bright enough for the HDV camera to really pick that up. So this is the pool room again. This is Sarah. This is Sarah and Nelson Comont. Sarah's wearing her ball dress that she wore to her school ball, and I went and bought her some long white gloves. I think that's her jewelry she's wearing. I'm not sure. Can't remember why she had that, but I guess it looks kind of cool. All three of these actors were really cool at the time. The commitment they put into it was a lot of fun. Filming, Sarah would just be ringing me up and say, do we need this or this or this or that, blah blah blah. This is the first scene we filmed, I think, because we were filming at my friend's house, and my friend Fred's house, and it was only available this night. So I think this was the first scene we filmed, and we had the dodgy sound guy turn up for this one night, and the actors had only just sort of learned their lines, and we hadn't really rehearsed this scene at all, so it was I found it really hard, and me throwing into this, I hadn't had a lot of experience doing handheld camera work. I think I am a bit better since I did the Big Woo, but which I think was my first sort of handheld sort of film that I can remember. and just filming this scene and doing manual focus. And I mean, I put extra bright light bulb in here over the table to try and increase the resolution, but the shots where they're not directly in the light, you can really see the camera straining. And just the blocking of the scene and trying to film it so it makes sense was really, really hard. I don't know if people actually find that it probably does cross the line here and there, and I tried to make it sensical. I don't know if it worked or not. I guess you can let me know in the comments. We had a lot of problem with Sarah's hair, getting it neat and tidy. I think now we're cutting back to my house from Fred's room. Fred's house, and you can see, you can't really even see the black and white version, but I'd made a completely fake piano there in that scene that I constructed out of a park bench and a bunch of beer promo cards that I used to work at a liquor store, and I got the big plastic card beer promo signs and painted them black and cut it up to look like a piano, but you can't even really see it in the black and white version, if at all. I don't know if you can even see it in the color version. This is our one scene with extras. We've got my friend Harry, who's the bartender, and I think he's actually the guy there who took a sip in a different outfit. Nelson brought his sister along. Harry and I think Bryony, who did the artwork, is in this scene. That's Justin, my friend. I did film school with him. He came along. I can't remember why he was there. I don't think he really was involved in the filming of this. I guess he just turned up. That was pretty cool of him. And he was just a drunk guy in the corner. I think my friend Alex lent the microphone we're using here. It's not a real microphone that you would use in that situation, but it kind of as close as I could get to look like that. I think it's a mic for a bass drum on a drum set. Some of the close-ups of Imogen here are the only times I think I used the 85mm lens. This is my friend Alex, who's playing the mysterious piano player in The Mask. Although, it could have been someone else. I don't know if he was here that day. It could be anyone in that costume. So I thought, revealing his character would really just be like, people at this moment thought it was just a typical film noir film, and they see that and his character come out and they're like, whoa, something's happening. Don't know if that worked for you guys or not. This scene here, again, the sound's a bit hard because I use these fluoro lights for the bar, and of course they make a little sound. Sorry, I just need to take a drink. So of course, even though it's a quite an intimate scene, so I could have the mics closer to them, the sound isn't great here. Of course, that's the bane of my problem, Sound is so hard when you're almost making this film by yourself. Like, Harry here sometimes would hold the mic when he's not in shot, but hold the boom mic. But most of the time, it's just on a stand if there's no one else around to hold him. There's quite a few continuity errors in the scene by I don't know whether people notice or not. I guess I'm usually following a dialogue when I watch, so I don't notice it, but there is, like, sometimes they've got the glasses up to their face, sometimes they've got it to the ground. This is sort of Imogen's main scene to talk. She used it in a show reel. I don't know how these scenes like this come across in show reels, because they're such cheesy. Like, they're sort of almost intentionally trying to be these cliche characters, so it comes across as sort of bad acting, but they are putting a lot of work into making it these sort of stereotypical film noir characters. So I don't know if they see these scenes out of context, will they appreciate what the people are doing here. Again, I got Imogen some black gloves, of course, to match up with her alternate in Sarah. Sarah now lives in she moved to Melbourne. Now I think she's moved to London. Nelson, I'm not sure where he is. I think he may have moved to, his boyfriend got work in South Africa, and I think he may have moved over there with him. Imogen still lives in Perth. I don't know if she's still doing acting, but she was in one of my other feature films, which is more recent, called Rambling Wells, short films called Rambling Wells. She has a role in that, but that's not online at the moment because I have some chaotic issues with this is one of my favorite shots. Sarah peering out the corner. Doo-dum, doo-dum. You can see that does not look like a bar at all. You can clearly tell it's my house there. That's another one of Bryony's drawings of a dark alleyway. I'm just like, yeah, I just want a dark alleyway. She's like, what? Is this blackness in the screen? I'm like, yeah, that'll do. I think here we have the first use of the smoke machine. No, wait, this is a different scene. We filmed in the back of Fred's house in an alleyway in Subiaco. This scene was really hard to film because it's like the only lights we had was like the lights of the car that we had driven to the place. So this whole scene's a bit weird and messy, but this is the actual costume is based on my friend Campbell. It was a costume he made he wanted to dress up as the spirit guy from Spirited Away, the guy in the black outfit. So you can see what that's inspired by. And I gave him some white gloves here. And of course the white flash is to represent the arrival of the superhero. Yes, this is a smoke machine. This is my smoke machine shot. Fred, I think, is in the background. They're waving a smoke around. It's getting blown away, trying to get it. It just looks... we're trying to do film noir, trying to press people, trying to do all the cliched shots and everything. This is outside my house in the carport. Again, filming just under the lights that I had in the carport. We did hire one big light for a couple of scenes. This is my back shed. These black and white checkers I had for my 21st birthday. I had this a swing party and a 1920s party, and I bought this huge sheet of black and white checkered lino to line the temporary floor they installed in our backyard for the event, just to give it some kind of effect. And it's almost completely destroyed by all the girls with their high heels poking holes through it and stabbing it, and it was a pretty hard night of partying as well. So that it's been sitting rolled up in my shed, ever since my 21st, and I pulled it down and used it with a bunch of fluoros to try and make a weird effect in my shed, to make it like some weird kind of dungeon where this superhero lives, the Batcave, so to speak. This is my living room, which is now converted to a cinema since the furniture moved elsewhere with my parents. Give a shout out to Max and Cameron, and I think maybe Mark, who gave me these glasses here for my 21st birthday, using this scene. Nelson, I assume he's strictly gay. I don't know if he's bi or not, but he had a good time kissing these two beautiful women. There's a lot of outtakes where these guys just Imogen couldn't stop laughing whenever she kissed Nelson, because they were sort of friends. It was kind of weird for them. So there's a lot of outtakes of that. Now, I think this is Alex again in the costume, but it could be Harry, since we could sort of swap them over. There you can see the seal of the baddie on the table, subtly printed out on an A4 sheet of paper. There's a keg. I don't know if you recognize that keg, but it was in Pudding Dreams, my first film I did with film school, as holding up the bench, so to speak. And I should have pointed out in the commentary, but you can also see the seal that the superhero uses is based on a little ornament that's hanging on a wall at Fred's house, which you can actually see as Dosh Johnson walks into the pool room. If you go back and see it there, it's hanging on a wall, and we base the whole idea there. It's a bit of a hint, random hint. Sarah's costume that you're seeing there, one of Nelson's friend, I forget her name, but her name's in the credits, actually made the cape by hand based on my random design. It's pretty easy to make a cape, but I had specific instructions of how I want it to be, and I wanted it to wrap around her neck to give it a weird sort of look. And I don't know if anyone actually appreciates it. The rest of the outfits are strung together with some stockings and some. It's like we got this really big shirt that was really tight to wear. I think she wears that as a skirt with a belt, but it's actually one big shirt. I think with the stockings underneath. The sword, the little random sword she's holding is that she holds at the end was donated by Harry's brother, Jamie. It's like a training sword. It's not actually dangerous. It's really flexible. This is my brilliant plot device here. Dun dun dun! Someone's getting poisoned. But I was watching some of the old film noirs, and they all had really, some are considered classics and everything. I'm not a huge fan, but they all have really silly plots. I did the film Noir unit again a few years later just for fun. I did that was the Noir Love we did there. Man, we had so much trouble finding the irises in this piece. We obviously just missed Iris season by 1 week, and so I had to end. I'd seen them all over the place, and that's what inspired me to write the piece all over the place, and inspired me to write it into the story, these irises, and of course, a week later, time come to film, and boy, it was hard to find them. I had to go every florist all the way, and eventually found one in Fremantle, which is a long way where I live in Leederville. Found one there to get help. As you can see, the continuity of the flowers is a bit weird. This scene was quite hard to film, so the irises got quite mangled when we needed to keep some of the vase that looked somewhat intact. So nice little lens flare there from the actual bench where she has the drinks is actually my TV, and I just covered it in black material. Yeah, that's how hardcore we are. Nelson had a really hard time here trying to crawl. Had to quite a few takes of him crawling and just destroying his pants while doing that as he went out. Had to people say this movie's too long, but I like to stretch things out. Come on, he's suffering. Here I am on top of my carport looking out over the driveway. It's my one fancy carport shot. These boots here that you're about to see were donated by Campbell. There's some like boxing boots or something. Again, we hired our one light that we hired for this expense. We used to hide up above to make her sort of like an angelic figure that just appears out of the light. And there you can see my fancy cape design where it sort of wraps around her neck. Great expense to the management to get that sorted out. And our main character dies in a movie. Not everyone does that, does they? And the actual... I like to think this shot at the end symbolizes that this superhero is now going to go out and be totally badass and get revenge for him. And we tried to get an air blower and we filmed this really late at night, so we woke up the whole street trying to billow her cape with this garden vac. This blows this magic thing, but it just didn't seem to work on the cape though. The cape was quite heavy because it was made of nice material that the maker made out of. I guess I should give some shout outs. Yeah. No, there will not be a sequel to this. I did write a sequel from memory, but or at least wrote an outline for the sequel. But this film is just too symbolically stressful in my mind, psychologically, that it'll destroy me if I do it. Nelson, Imogen, Sarah, Matthew Robson, Jag Lyle, Alex McRae does the piano player. Andrew and Bryony, they're doing the were extras. Bryony did the art. Arapan Baman, I don't know how to pronounce that, but he did it. And we used he did his own recording of St. Louis Blues. You and Me, yeah, I should say that. Imogen and Arapan wrote a song together, You and Me, that the one she's singing is actually written by Imogen herself and with Arapan's help, and they recorded that, and she's sort of lip syncing to that. Kyla Morgan, who did the cape. Kyla is awesome. I didn't know her. She was a friend Nelson's. She just he needed it, and I told her what to do, and she made it, and I never really saw her again. I gave her a free ticket to the screening because she wanted one, but I don't think she actually turned up from memory. But I think she had children, so it was probably hard to organise that or whatnot. And who would want to come see this movie, really? Who would want to come see this movie? So, yeah, I've rabbited on, and that's quite boring. And you can see why I want to get guests on the other episodes so they can ask me questions, and I can ask their opinions on things, and vice versa, to make it more interesting, and talk about random stuff that happened. But thanks for tuning in to this first edition of my Gimmerish commentaries. If you're watching this from YouTube, then go to gimmerish.com to see my list of the short films I've done over the years, and next to it should be a link to the commentary track if I've done one yet. This is the first one I'm sort of officially doing, but hopefully there'll be more up soon, and I promise there'll be more interesting this one where I'm just talking a whole heap of crap. I should talk about how this movie helped to make this the worst movie I've ever made. We just had so many problems. I just bought a MacBook Air with the cinema adapter so that I could shoot in HDV and edit in HDV, because my old computer couldn't edit HDV, didn't have the speed to do it. And of course, got to this film and the MacBook Pro decided to break. It would overheat, and it didn't have the heat settings or whatever, control settings. It would just shut off the computer, shut it down, rather than making the fans go faster to cool the computer down. And so you'd start editing and boom, it would just shut down and you lose whatever hadn't been auto-saved. And originally, so I had to send the computer back. The Apple resellers at the time kept the computer for like 2 months or something and still didn't fix it. So I had to edit it on an iBook G4. So I ended up having to edit it first in standard definition for the premiere screening, and then I then tried to, it was all recorded on tape with HTV, and then I tried to re-import everything as in HD and just use the edit decision list to redo it in HD, but something was out of sync or something, and the tapes were corrupted or something, and that was just a hell to get it all sorted. And then I just got it going, and then the RAID that I was using to edit on, the power slide broke, and that corrupted the RAID. And I did have a backup, but it took just even another long time to get the RAID back on and get the edit back from the backup and get it recovered and going again. And it was a really stressful process. Like, everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong. The sound was a problem. I think I talked about problems I had earlier with everything. But it was an interesting experience. It's the longest sort of short film I've ever done. I just went out and just made whatever I wanted to make, and I hope that it's I think if you actually sit down and just watch this film in, and TV, and sit down and not be distracted by things, I think you will get into it and you can enjoy it. But I guess if you're watching this on YouTube and just in a little window on your computer, it's going to be horrible. So sorry about that if you've had to go through that. Look at that old-fashioned phone desk. That was the best prop ever. Anyway, I think that's about enough. I will call it quits. Stay tuned for more commentaries at jimmerish.com. Hey, look at my paper. I had to design that paper, the leadable rag or whatever it was, and make up articles for this thing. That was my big production budget. I'm so... this is the only movie I've ever really had to do any kind of production design or props or anything. There you can see the hint of the seal put on the side of the bus for an old-fashioned photo. I mean, she had a whole monologue. I had to actually write the script onto the page so it made it look like she was actually reading, because if she actually memorized that, when she just read it, it sounded like she was not reading. It sounded like she was just saying it from memory. I had to do that. So, anyway, I think I'll actually go this time. If you see Imogen or Nelson or Sarah on the streets, tell them congratulations for being part of Shadow of the Seraph. Dun dun dun. Talk to you later. Bye.